Welcome to the Divorce by Rose Room. We're super excited to have you here today with us as we are talking about today's topic, how to truly protect your children in divorce. This is a loaded topic with so many different components to it because it really depends. Your solution really depends on what your situation is. It depends on which, whether you're having an easy divorce, amicable divorce, or a nasty divorce. It also depends on your kids' ages. But we're going to talk generally today, okay? Because you never know when something that we mentioned can apply to you, maybe not today, but tomorrow or the day after. Because one of the things to understand in divorce is that it's like this constant roller coaster. So you're always going to have these ups and downs and ups and downs. And one day you're going to have issues with your ex, and the next day it's going to be about the kids, and the next day it's about finances, and the next day it's about your crazy mother-in-law. And then you're going to repeat the cycle all over again until you get to a plateau and you start to stabilize. So I read a statistic once that said that for women, it takes anywhere between 1 and 3 years to stabilize. And for men, it takes anywhere between 3 and 5 years. Okay. Obviously, there are adjustments and there are, there are exceptions to the rule, of course. But in general, this is what the rule is. Okay. So when you're going through your difficulty, when you're going through the ups and downs, when you're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it and all that, it's always this adjustment period. And through the adjustment period, one of the things as parents that we have a very hard time with is dealing with the fact that we feel bad for our children. We feel so horrible, and we feel like we've hurt them, we've destroyed their lives. We feel like they don't deserve them, and we say things like poor them and poor them and poor them and poor them. Now, I really do feel that sad for the kids because it really isn't something fun to go through. And it's really not something that they even know how to deal with. And it's so unfortunate on so many levels that they have to go through pain. But I am the kind of person who also looks for solutions. And I'm also the kind of person who thinks outside of the box. And however painful things are in a divorce process, I really do believe that there's always something good on the other side. That there's always a better solution. There's always a better way of looking at things, because thinking poor them, poor them, poor them, poor them is really not helping them, and it's not helping you. It almost puts them in this position of like victim, and they shouldn't be in that position, right? There should be a lot more emphasis on empowering them to realize different things and to take this as an opportunity, as a lesson or an experience in life. So everyone's situation is different. Obviously, if you're dealing with abuse and domestic violence, all that, that would be very different from what I'm talking about. So I'll talk from my personal experience, and I'll share some ideas of what I did so that you can understand what I did to help my children and myself through the process of trying to figure out, how am I going to make this okay for my kids? So when I got divorced 10 years ago, I thought it was going to be easy, turned out to be extremely litigious. And that's kind of where it ended. It just ended up being this war zone battle between my ex and myself, where he just had this obsession of going to court every year and a half. And it was just like a never ending situation. So within the process, obviously, a lot of money was being drained. A lot of money that should have gone to the kids didn't go to the kids. It went to feed a lawyer or buy them a Mercedes or a diamond ring, or who knows what they did with it. And the unfortunate part is that my kids lost out in a lot of different things: vacations, the type of activities I would have liked for them, the type of home environment, all those sorts of things. But I don't look at that anymore. I don't look at it as, like, oh, that $80,000, I could have bought myself a brand new car, and I could have done this and I could have done that. I don't really go there anymore. Why? Because it doesn't help me whatsoever. Now, for the kids, yeah, I would have loved if they had, more variety in their life. But at the end of the day, I say, you know what? It is what it is. If I couldn't give it to them, and I couldn't have given them the kind of lifestyle that we had when we were married, so it is. This is all they know anyways. They don't know any different. They were so young when they had more that at this point, this is what they're used to. But the one thing that I cherish the most, and it sounds so strange to say this, but it makes so much sense, is that when I was growing up, I had such an easy childhood, adulthood. I really had no drama in my life. So it was like smooth sailing up until I got like 2 years before I got divorced. So I was very naive, very ignorant, sheltered most of my life, didn't really even understand, how bad can life get? How bad can situations get? How bad can people become? I really never experienced that until I saw who my ex became, until I started being involved in these games and these dramas and these looping sagas that were never ending. And so the way I look at it from my kids is, it's unfortunate that they had to go through all of this chaos and watch all this bickering and this destruction going on, but there was nothing I could have done about it. Because if it comes from the other side, there's nothing, you can't prevent the other side from talking. You could prevent what you're going to do and how you're going to react and how you're going to respond. So I chose to respond differently to my children. And I chose to take a very different angle. And my angle was, listen, guys, it's really not the best situation ever, but at least you're learning about life. At least you're learning about people. At least you're learning how to overcome obstacles, which is something that I never did when I was young. I never had these problems. And so here I was, like 30 something years old, having to deal with life as an adult, mother to two young children, and I had no idea what to do. I had zero experience in life. And yes, I had my parents and my family and all that, but it's not the same when someone else tells you what to do. So for myself, I had to learn a lot about people and personalities and difficult people, most especially. And my kids are now learning about how to deal with difficult people in a positive manner. And the best part is, and the way that I look at this is that, you know what, at least my kids are still like those like sponges that they want to hear and they want to listen and they still want to talk to me because they're still at the age where they're at home and they still love me and want to be with me all the time. So at least I got to raise them to understand the realities of life, the realities of people and different personalities. And we tried different things and saw what worked and what didn't work. So they got to experience different things. And when I tell my friends this, or my family, or my clients, or whoever, they say, oh, that's such a different approach. I would have never thought about it. And I said, but you know what? If I put them as victim, I'm like, oh, poor them and poor them and poor them and poor them and poor them. What am I doing for them? I'm not doing anything good for them. Yes, in the bottom of my heart, subconsciously, I feel bad that they had to go through this. But in the real world, I need to show them what life is really all about. So I chose to take a positive approach to this. I chose to look at this in a more enlightening manner that will teach them lifelong lessons, something that they will come out with. Because the most important thing for me is, what's the legacy that I want to leave behind to my children? At the end of the day, they're always going to remember the drama and the stupidities and the chaos and, like all the craziness that happened. But I want them to also be raised as mature adult gentlemen who really know how to treat a woman, know how to deal with difficult situations and difficult people. I know how the difference between reacting and responding. So by exercising, the reality of what we deal with on a regular basis, I usually ask them, okay, so what's the lesson here? What are the things that you would do? What are the things that you wouldn't do if you were in that situation? And these lessons, I'm sure, are going to help, turn them into these very mature teenagers. And they are very mature. And a lot of people say my oldest, especially Gabriel, is like an angel. He has really caught on very well to life. He's caught on very well to people. He's very connected to people, and he doesn't let craziness get to him the way that it used to get to him when he was younger. So that's something that I did. That's an approach that I use. That's an approach that I truly believe in. And now we're going to hear from, we have 5 or 6 different coaches from Divorced by Rose who are all here to share their advice and recommendations for you on this topic. How do you truly protect your children in divorce? And like I said, each and every one of us will have different strategies for you. You take in what you think is best for you. You modify, you adapt it. You can take two different strategies and mold them together. You could do whatever's good for you. But the most important thing is I really congratulate you for being in this room here today and for wanting to hear some advice from other neutral people. And the reason is because it's very important for you to listen and hear what other people have to say. Because in our heads, our emotions are telling us all the worst case scenarios. And it's very hard to tell that part of our emotions to stop being negative and to start thinking positively and start looking for realistic solutions. So that back chat, those like flying monkeys that are in our heads, like, you know, jumping around from one side of our brain to the other and are causing us chaos in our brain, are trying to mess us up. And you have to really just train yourself to stop that chaos in your head and say, okay, there's always a solution. There's always something I can do to make life better and easier. So just to recap, before I go to the coaches to hear all their great wisdom and advice, I just want to recap that Divorce by Rose is a divorce community app that essentially brings together two communities. You've got the parents who are contemplating divorce or newly separated, who have questions and concerns and worries and anxieties and don't know what to do and how to do it and where to go from here and who to talk to and how to move forward with life. And we pull them together, we bridge the gap between them and coaches, experts, and professionals from various industries who have tools and strategies and wisdom and advice to share to help the parents to move forward in life so that the parents can avoid ending up broke and broken, whether financially, emotionally, or physically. There are common patterns throughout all divorces. The best thing is when you surround yourself with a neutral support system who will plant all kinds of these seeds of thought in your mind to get you thinking about divorce in a different way and get you looking at different solutions, in different ways. It's very important that you open yourself up and you open up your horizon and you start looking at your divorce from like a bird's eye view. Because when I started doing that, and when everyone starts doing that, all the clients, everyone's ever spoken to, when they start thinking bigger, they start seeing bigger and solutions come to them more easily. And they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I could do this and do that. And that makes sense. And the solutions start to come to them. So joining Divorce by Rose basically is like Facebook, except much more sophisticated, and we're not tracking you, and we're not tracking what you're writing, and we're not going to put Google ads, on your phone that says anything about divorce. So when you come and join Divorce by Rose, you're completely anonymous, which means you're using a fake first name and last name. We don't even know who you are. So you get to remain totally under the radar. Secondly, you get to engage with like-minded parents who have the same questions and same concerns as you, because I guarantee you, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, my divorce was the worst. Mine was the pits. My situation is the worst. No one has a situation like me. And I can tell you hands down, you're probably wrong. Why? Because there's a lot of common patterns. The only difference is I'm going to argue over pink shoes and you're going to argue over blue shorts. But at the end of the day, the root cause of all the problems are the same. And also the situations and the sagas are pretty much the same. And it leads you all to the same place. So at the end of the day, it's really important to not feel like you're alone. And also we've got dozens of amazing, super heartwarming and passionate coaches, experts, and professionals who are there to help you to explore different ideas and different ways of thinking. And, some of them are here, some are on the app. And we love having them here on Clubhouse because of the fact that they are here with the goodness of their hearts to share their passion with you. So just one last thing, to make it very clear, we're not pro-marriage and we're not pro-divorce either. We are a bunch of coaches with a passion and a mission to revolutionize the way parents are divorcing around the world. How? By educating you and by planting new seeds of thought in your mind to get you thinking differently, because we need to replace the old and outdated mindset with a fresh, new, balanced system. And this is the system that we all believe every parent needs to know. So if you want access to the Divorce by Rose community as a show of gratitude for being in the room here with us today, if you send me a message with DBR or Divorce by Rose, either on Instagram, or if you don't have Instagram, through here, I will send you a link for free membership to Divorce by Rose, and also our signature course, which is called the 5 Critical Strategies to Avoid a Nasty Divorce. And so you'll have bite-sized videos and tons of information from myself and all the coaches who are going to educate you and have you thinking differently. So all you need to do is make sure you're clicking on my picture, which is at the top left black and white picture. Make sure you're following me. Also make sure that you're setting the bell to always, so that every time we open a room, I can always notify you that we have a room open. We do have rooms for now, Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, but we're opening up rooms at random times during the day, weekends, and all that. So if you love what we talk about, make sure you're following all of us, and make sure you're following the ones that you're connecting with the most as you wish, and make sure that you're following the club so that you'll always be notified. So the first coach that we're going to go to is Donna James. So Donna, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and then give us some advice that helped you with your children, and whatever you would share with your clients.
Thanks, Ravit. Hi, everyone. I'm Donna James, and I'm a domestic abuse survivor turned certified coach. And I went through a very nasty divorce. It took years for me to get through it, thousands and thousands of dollars, and a lot of debt and a lot of emotional pain. But the one thing that I knew is that my children's only chance of getting away from the abuse and being able to move forward and get out of that cycle was for me to gain my confidence, gain my strength, and help them. So, my boys are young grown men now, and I constantly am getting compliments on how amazing they are. I mean, they're just very loving, mature, kind, and honest gentlemen, and I'm so proud of that. And there's a few things that I encourage everybody when you are going through this situation through divorce is, and these are rules that I followed, and one of the first things I said to everybody when I left my ex and people started realizing what he was doing because I had kept it secret for so long, is I told anybody that they are never ever to speak badly around my kids. Even if they were in an upstairs in the bedroom or downstairs or outside, I didn't ever want anyone speaking badly about their dad. For one thing, they are part their dad. So if I'm saying that their dad's a monster, then they're going to feel that they're part monster. And the other thing is that I told them, I said, they will eventually figure out who their dad is. So as long as I was keeping them safe and doing all I could to keep them safe, then that was helping them. And the other thing that, I like people to know is children are going to mirror you. So it's kind of like if children fall down and they bang their knee, there's nothing really major. If you run over there and you're like, oh my God, are you okay? Oh, you must be so hurt. They're going to feel so hurt and so, traumatized. But if you just go over and go, oh, you fell, that's okay, you're okay, get up. And they mirror that. And, if you're positive, they're going to be positive. And, the other thing is I really encourage you to let them talk to you. Let them, be open and honest about how they're feeling and, and without judgment. You don't want to tell them how they should feel or shouldn't feel. They're going to feel how they're feeling. They just need to know that they have a safe space where they can be honest and they can feel, how they're feeling, and they can, heal from that. And, the other thing too that I encourage people, and I can't tell you how many of my clients have told me this, is one of the first things is that they don't want their spouse to have visitation. They want full custody because they want to hurt their spouse. And the only person that they're going to be hurting is their children. And I can tell you that I've seen that over and over again. And I really encourage people to embrace those opportunities. When your kids go to see their other parent and visit with them, use that time for you. use that time to recuperate and to refresh yourself, and just to have that time to yourself. It's good for you, it's good for your parent or for the other parent, and it's very good for your children. And again, as long as you're keeping them safe, there is nothing wrong with that, and it should be encouraged. So I hope that helps from my side of things, and how I came through it. As I mentioned, it was a very abusive situation, and my moment that I left was actually when my ex threw our 5-year-old across the room because he spilt his milk. And, so I realized at that point that there was a lot of the abuse that thought I had been protecting my kids from, that I thought were solely focused on me, was not. And that was why I knew that I needed to be the one who got the courage, got the strength, build back my confidence, so that I could take care of my kids at that point and keep them safe. They have a wonderful relationship with their dad. I've empowered them to deal with that type of conflict and to understand how they can deal with him. They love and respect him in many ways. He's their dad. But I just, I really encourage you to, as long as they're not in harm's way, to please let them spend time with their other parent. Speak highly of the other parent. That's going to make you look good, and it makes the other parent look good, but it makes the kids feel good. So I hope that helped. Again, my name is Donna James, and I'm done.
It's definitely helpful. Thank you, Donna. I agree completely with what you said. And it's a lot of what we're doing is trial and error, right? We're trying to figure something out. We're trying to see what works, what doesn't work. What may work for one parent may not work for another, only because the children are different. There are different levels of their emotional, there are different levels of their grieving process. Their emotions are a little bit different. So you adjust and adapt each situation. But the most important thing is that you're here, you're listening, and hopefully you'll remember some of these tools and strategies, so that when you really do need it, you'll always have it on top of mind. Now, in addition, we're going to go next to John D. Whitus, who's actually created a course for parents and their children. And she's going to tell us a little bit about, her theory and her strategies on how you could truly protect your children in divorce. So John D., go ahead.
Hi there, everybody. This is John D., and I'm in New York City, and I'm very happy to be included on the Divorced by Rose team. I have a lot of great colleagues, and so it's a source of pride for me to join you. I'm a former teaching artist. I am also a divorcee a couple of times, and so I've learned a few lessons along the way about children as well as divorce. And I'd like to introduce you to the idea that often when we are hurting so badly and we are so uncertain, we're so taken by surprise by what is transpiring in our lives, it's very easy to feel like we're putting the children first, but actually we're taking care of their very nominal needs. So where do I come in? I am a top tapping trainer, and I come in on the emotional underpinnings of all these things that are happening. And nowhere am I more convinced that we need to spend our attention than for our youngest, most vulnerable, and least developed cognitively, because they have not the experience of the world that you do. So my take on all this is about how do I actually grow to a mindset of putting the children first, and what does that actually mean? And why do I need to do that? So this is where I'm coming from. I also provide the kind of tapping tools that I offer to my professional training classes, but I'm offering these for a very specific purpose in a very simplified form. And I've called the whole thing Take 5 because, as I was explaining to Ravit, most of us going through this kind of thing do not perceive we have one more minute to give. We are given giving on so many levels. We are psychically, energetically, physically, emotionally, and financially giving on all levels, and we're tired, often exhausted. So I made sure that each of these modules felt doable and refreshing, and that they had takeaways. So whether your multiple intelligences intake style is kinesthetic, or it's visual, or it's oral, that hopefully I have made a way for these tiny little doable bite-sized nuggets to fit into your very busy life and be a source of energy and clarity while you navigate this. And of course, my mission, which is to help your children better navigate this phase of your life and whatever your life throws down. How about that, Ruth?
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm very excited for this course because, as I was saying that, I don't know if I said it today or if I said it yesterday, but I've been divorced for 10 years and did a lot of self-development. I did a lot of work on myself. And now 10 years in, I'm still learning so much. I feel like you're never at a point where you've learned enough and that you've stopped learning. So I'm super happy to have learned this new methodology, because it's not something that I'd ever known about. And for some kids it's going to be great, for some parents it's going to be amazing. This is exactly what they need. So definitely something to look into. And once you have access to the Divorce by Rose community, you'll actually have access to John Dee's course, where you'll get more information and a little video explanation of what she's offering and all that. So if you're interested in John Dee's course, definitely let me know, follow her here, and let me know also, and I could send you information just in case. So up next, we're going to go to Farah Ali, who is another one of our coaches on Divorce by Rose. So Farah, what are your thoughts on this?
Hello, how's my volume?
That's great. It's perfect.
Okay, great. Just checking, wanted to get the technical stuff out of the way. Hi, everyone. So my name is Farah Ali, and I am also a tapping coach like John Dee. My focus is more on the adult side. So inside the Divorce by Rose community, what I'm offering is a course that will help people understand and get to know what's happening inside a stuck state. So if people are contemplating whether to end it or stay, this would be the perfect thing to do. It's a good reflection of what's going on at the moment and getting a snapshot around it. And as John Dee said, a lot of times people don't realize the emotional contributing factors that are holding things in place. And I definitely have worked with people who have children, and my partner who's divorced also went through that. So I'm just going to do a little bit of reflection on what that means for people and how to protect their children. And a lot of my clients have actually had older children, adult children. So the thinking is a little bit different, but I think that there's still a lot of learning there. And the idea that you feel hurt and your feelings are there, I think can sometimes heavily influence and color how you see what's happening to your kids. And sometimes it gets in the way of them having their experience. So it's not very different maybe from what my colleagues have said, who have given just fantastic information. But there's a lot of value to doing your own processing about how you're feeling right now. And especially if you're still undergoing a divorce process or considering it, that can really get in the way. And a lot of us feel stalled because we're worried about how it will affect our kids. And even adult kids are heavily affected by a parent's divorce. So that debate never goes away. And it can just linger. In fact, in terms of my partner, he was lucky. He had an amicable divorce, but it still took, I think, 2.5 years for the paperwork to go through. And when you have somebody who's already over 20 years old, as his kid was, I think they were 22 at the time, maybe, then you're dealing with somebody who doesn't share their feelings. Once they're a teenager, it's much harder, and yet you want to be respectful, and you have these wishes and desires that come from the legacy you wanted to lead and the parent you want to be, and you don't know what's going on for your kid because it's just that stage of life where a lot of times they don't communicate those things. And the best place to start is to see what's coming up for you and tease out the parts of it that are really about you and the legacy or reactions that you have from things that have happened in your past that are getting in the way of you being able to interpret it. And as long as you're able to come in and do these things of being loving and being fully present, and once you can kind of let go of your own reaction, for older children, in this case, I'm talking about, it's easier to have those conversations and actually make sure that the kid is okay. And that's what happened in the case of my partner. But I've also had some clients with younger kids, and I do want to underline, I think that the idea of, you feeling bad versus them feeling bad happens a ton there. And what might be playing in is exhaustion. There's nothing better than tapping to understand that stuff from the inside, because you just feel exhausted all the time. But when you start tapping, you start to understand some of those things are actually coming from things you've learned from the past, and that are causing you to hold a lot of emotional weight. And letting go of that, even if it's still an exhausting situation, you go into it with a lot more vision and intention about your legacy and less about this knee-jerk reaction that happens. And so that can be extremely helpful. And just the idea that, a lot of times, especially with younger children, I think we want to protect them so much that we feel like we need to change the other person. And I just had a client that I was working with where his own mother, so it was the mother-in-law, and my client originally was the wife, and she was saying, okay, well, he's stressed out because of his mother, because that becomes an issue, that wedge that the mother-in-law forms between the husband and the wife. And he was siding with his wife, which was fortunate, so that they had a unified force on working with their children. But when I came and I started working with him, and I said, what would you absolutely want to change, get to if we work together for a few sessions? And of course he said, well, I want to change my mother-in-law's mind. And it really was hard for him to understand that couldn't be something that he could achieve. And we did agree on something that he could achieve, because you can't change the way other people feel. I said, how about if you didn't feel that way anymore? How about if you didn't have to have that reaction? Like whatever your mother-in-law did, it would be okay. And he was always keeping her in the family, just as we do with, an ex, where they're part of the child's life, and he wanted to be present, but he was having all this emotional reaction every time she contacted him because of all the other stuff happening in the background, but wanted the grandmother's energy to be present, and she was showing up in a way that was safe and loving and valuable. And so his mind, he was like, I got to change how she thinks. But once he got past that, it was really incredible, because he did actually get to the point where he wasn't getting angry anymore. And towards the end of our work together, he said, oh, my mom did this one thing, and oh my gosh, last time, if it had been before, a week or two before we worked together, I would have been angry for days. And it was like, I felt it in the moment, and it passed right through me, and I was able to move on. And now whatever she brings forward, he's not going to react that way. So he can have her present without it costing him a lot of energy. And he can, he'd already made the decision, fortunately, that she was a valuable force, but he was dealing with how much it affected him, and he wasn't really able to see any other way to make it better except to get her to see his way. And now that, although he still wants that doesn't matter anymore. I think that's all I wanted to add here, but I think this is an excellent topic, and this is Farah. I'm done speaking.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farah. I think it's a great topic as well. And if you guys think so as well, do send me a message, because if there are particular topics you'd like us to cover and you'd like to get all of our perspectives on something, this is definitely the place for it, because we're open to having various discussions on a daily basis. We're here Monday through Thursday, and sometimes even on the weekends and in the evenings. So we're always open to suggestions if there's something that is really pondering your mind and something that is eating you up inside, we definitely don't need that to happen, right? That's what we're here for. And so as I mentioned before, make sure you're following me, the top left picture, Ravit, and make sure that you're setting the bell to always. And then, of course, any of the coaches where you hear anything that you like that resonates with you too, make sure you're following them as well, so that you always have access to all their every time they're opening a room and stuff. So we're gonna go next to Juliet Marciano. Dr. Juliet, what suggestions do you have for us today?
Thanks, Ruby, and welcome everybody. And the information that you're receiving today is just incredible, and I'm so glad to be part of this. Just for a short introduction, my name is Dr. Juliet Marciano. I'm a mindset coach for parents and a certified parent coach. I'm also a retired pediatrician and a single parent of 4 young adults. In my work, I work with parents around the world who are facing family challenges such as divorce or parenting a child with a physical, mental, behavioral, emotional, or learning difference. The reason I became part of the Divorce by Rose community is because I have seen over the years that I've been first practicing pediatrics and then as a parent coach, I have seen the lasting suffering that divorce can inflict on children and families when parents just don't have access to the guidance and the support and information that they need as they're divorcing and redefining their family. I believe that it's never too late to help your family, but I do know that if you get the help that you need before you feel exhausted and stressed and overwhelmed, and before you make the common mistakes that parents make during divorce, you really can avoid some of the circumstances that cause pain in your family for years, and for some families for generations to come. When I work with parents, I work on all aspects of parenting. Co-parenting with your former spouse is one very big challenge of divorce, but really parenting your children through a challenging time is something that every parent will encounter at some time. And when I work with parents, I help them have a calmer, more conscious, more connected, and more confident parenting experience and family life, no matter what challenges they face. We all know that the divorce process can take years, but long after the legal and financial aspects have been settled, the parenting aspects will continue and evolve over time. And after divorce, with good help like you're getting here and time, most adults end up fine and sometimes even better off, no matter how devastating the divorce experience can be. But for your children, they don't always have a good outcome. It's really important for parents to get the support that they need to help their children. And conversations like this are very important. A few of the things that I do when I work with parents is, one, I do help them shift their mindset to be able to see all that is there. Divorce is full of loss and grief and often sadness. And that does need to be recognized and validated, especially if your children are experiencing those feelings. But my coaching is based on a strength-based and positive-focused approach. So we look at the positive strengths and the positive qualities of every member of the family and of the family as a whole. And I help parents to make a list of resources and supports that they have available to them, and to figure out who is available and willing to help, and then to figure out how to let people help them. Sometimes that is a whole new reality for parents. They've never asked for help before. They've always been very, quote, independent, and they've been able to deal with things on their own. And divorce really has a way of humbling you, because it is very hard to do alone. You're going to need professional support like the people that you find in this call here, but you also need support in your parenting and your personal life. And that could be something as simple as someone who helps you figure out school pickups and drop-offs, whether it's someone who can save you a trip to the supermarket by picking up a few things for you. And in some families, it's someone to come in and help at bedtime, since that's often a time when children are really overwhelmed with all kinds of feelings and concerns. Parents also find that bedtime can be a tough time, and often they're exhausted at the end of the day. I think communication is so vital. So I work with parents on communication. It's important not only to keep the lines of communication open between the adults so that you can avoid using your children as messengers between the parents or as a confidant to either parent, burdened by details or responsibilities or information that's not appropriate for a child. But it's also important to keep that discussion ongoing with your children, because for them, this is an ongoing experience. And they will have different feelings and different realities and different, they come to different observations over the years. I read a recent statistic that said that 75% of parents spend a total of 10 minutes talking to their children about their divorce, and then they never talk about it again. And I feel for so many children, because I talk to them now as adults, they have suffered in silence for years and for decades. So it's very important to let your children know that they can come to you with things and that you'll help and support them through it. Another important aspect of divorcing is that you really want to try to limit exposure to conflict so that your children don't escape what can sometimes be a high conflict marriage and then end up in the midst of a high conflict divorce. And for you, if you're a part of that, it is very important that you find ways to stay calm. And that doesn't mean that you be a robot, but it does mean that you need to explore your feelings and triggers. And we've talked about that with the other professionals in the room. You want to do that so that your encounters with your ex-partner are less explosive, and also so that your times with your children can be more supportive. I have found for myself that mindfulness and meditation have been very helpful with that. For those of you who aren't familiar with mindfulness, it's defined as the awareness that arises from paying attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment. And that ability to stay in the present moment helps you avoid many of the common struggles that occur in divorce when people spend a lot of time going over and over in their head the events and hurts of the past, or they get in a cycle of worry and fear about possible future events, most of which will never happen. And so if you can be in that present moment, it not only helps you appreciate and enjoy your life more, but it makes you more available emotionally when you're interacting with your children. Speaking of your children, during divorce, you and your children will feel a wide range of emotions, sometimes many in the same day, sometimes several in the same hour. And it is important to recognize that everyone in your family will be affected by your divorce. Not everyone is affected in the same way or to the same degree. And if you have more than one child, you may realize that you're really helping them navigate all kinds of different emotions in each of the children at different times and on different time frames. And so that is very important. And as parents, it's important to keep in mind that sometimes children show that they're having difficulty by challenging behavior, either conflict with parents or teachers or friends or siblings. They might have academic difficulties. And all of those are signs that your children need help rather than punishment or negative consequences or strict discipline or parental firmness, which unfortunately is a lot of the advice you'll get from outside people. And sometimes it's your first go-to response. But it's really important to understand what's happening here and to help your children, even when the way that they communicate their need for help is often very challenging to appreciate and to accept. You do want to encourage your children to share their feelings and concerns with you so that you can offer them support and validate their experiences, no matter what they bring to you and no matter how uncomfortable you might be feeling hearing them. And recognize that supporting your children through this divorce experience is just like supporting them through any challenging time. You want to be able to sit with them and support them through their feelings without you feeling the need to fix things or take away their pain or make it right. Because for your children, that has immense value. They learn that pain is okay. It is a part of life. They can get through it and they'll be okay. And that you'll support them through it so that they're not alone. Because many children report years later and sometimes decades later as adults how alone they felt in the divorce process. They felt alone and abandoned. Often one parent moved out and the other parent is overwhelmed and preoccupied with their own feelings and concerns, with appointments with lawyers or mediators or financial people. They're struggling to figure out how they're going to do this new parenting reality that they're in. Sometimes they're encouraged to get out there and start your new life, but the children often feel left behind. So it's very important to send that message to your children that they're not alone. And, Ravi referenced this before, that when she went through childhood, she didn't go through any challenging times. And it is true, as parents, we do want our children to develop resilience, but it's important to remember that the only way to do that is to really go through challenging experiences and get through to the other side. So that's what your children will be getting here. But just because your children may be resilient, it doesn't mean they haven't suffered. So we do want to avoid burdening them with more than is necessary in this divorce experience. I think it is very important that parents realize even the most challenging divorces, there are incredible opportunities as a parent. And I know for myself as a parent who has guided my children through many challenging times, that those have given me the opportunity to help guide them through that time because they learned from that. We were able to strengthen our family connection. I was able to nurture my children's resilience. And for me, because I put in the time and the work, I was able to achieve personal growth and transformation. And that is what the experts in the Divorce by Rose app would hope for each of you. So I thank you for being here today, and I hope to see you in the app. This is Dr. Juliet Marciano, and I'm out.
Beautiful. Wow. I'm writing so many notes. I'm even taking some notes down, thinking to myself, okay, have I done this with my kids? Have I done that? You kind of like do like a check-in just to make sure that you're doing the right thing and that you're not forgetting something. It's always good to to keep up to date with with your kids on a regular basis. So thank you for that, Dr. Juliet. And next is Sandra Volks. Maybe Sandra, you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what your strategy is to truly protect children in divorce.
Thank you. Yeah, Coach Sandra here. I am the, choking, compassionate queen of straight talk. And with the straight talk, that's exactly what, when I look at divorce and the divorce that I went through, there is so much stuff happening during the process. Actually, it started probably 10 years before the actual separation and divorce, and then continued. And I can tell you, divorce is, amicable or not, is life-changing and there forever. I stayed together with my partner until the children were grown, because being a financial advisor, I saw so many divorces when the children were young, and then the fighting started and the money didn't flow, and it was very difficult. So I thought, it won't matter when the divorce is, as per the age of the children, as long as it's not abuse, domestic abuse. But it won't matter on the age of the children, because everyone's going to have upset no matter how it's handled. So I chose to wait until the children were grown. But even with that, even then, they said, like, Mom, what are you doing? Why are you here? Let's stop it. And yet they were probably 18 and 20, 19 and 21. And they were encouraging me to stop it. And yet it affected them greatly. And they didn't realize that for another 3 or 4 years after. And now they're 50. And then it was still affects them. I mean, it's there. It's life-changing. So in terms of my course is Exploring Divorce. And I like to use the word of exploring it, because that's truly what I feel needs to be done. When we're taking the time to explore, that is exploring my own thoughts, the relationship, what I'm seeing in the partner, what I'm seeing within the family. It's exploring all aspects to understand what is going on. And while I'm in the process of exploring, that means I'm slowed down to a little bit of a reflective mode. I spent my divorce time thinking about staying in the eye of the storm. Whenever I would get overwhelmed, I would say, just go back to the eye of the storm. Let it whistle out around you. Let them do all their blowing around and all of the noise. It doesn't matter. Go back to the eye of the storm. So it was still stressful, but I was able to contain my own reactions and outward bursts of energy that are going to weaken you during this stressful time. So with the exploring, I just think it's critical to imagine, what's it like the day you get your divorce? The judge says, okay, you're done. What's it like? What's it like a week later? At the end of a month, a year later, have you had your finances in order so that you could survive a year? Imagining that. Now, I don't want you to imagine only for yourself. You go through again and write another page. What's it like for your partner, the spouse that's gone? What about for the children, the in-laws, your parents, the family? Taking that time to really explore and stay in the eye of the storm while you do what's fair, what's right, and hopefully what's balanced at a very stressful time makes a huge, huge difference. And that is why I chose that route. Because reconciliation, if you're fighting over money, then get money education. If you're fighting over adultery, what was not at home? I don't care what it is. Communication is going to be a way of resolving whatever the end result is. True communication of truly caring about each other, even in the fighting. Because, you know, when you got married, something about it must have been because you cared about each other. Even if it was society saying, oh, you should get married. Well, okay, if I'm going to get married, then this is a pretty nice guy. Like, something was there. What disappeared? How did it disappear? Why did it disappear? That all comes out in communication. And if your partner is not into communicating, as mine was not, then you communicate with the paper and start doing your automatic writing, your journaling. And I just think it's critical. So effective communication, turning in towards each other, exploring all of the input, to me is going to lead you to sounder decisions, and you're going to have less baggage going forward, because the baggage that you take into the next relationship, if you don't work on it and fix it and clean it up now, you're going to choose another relationship that looks very familiar, and it will probably be a repeat. So with that, I would say protecting the children is protecting yourself, getting in, doing that inside work that's going to be critical, helping them do their inside work. There's lots of wonderful counseling for children as well. That's not my area, but children need the counseling as well as the parents, and it's well worth the time and the effort to get what you need as you go along. So with that, I would love to hear what our participants that have joined the room would like to say or ask. And Sandra's handing it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. All great advice. And it reminded me that throughout the 10 years, I always try different things with my boys, whether, you know, we tried journaling. That didn't last very long, especially not with the little one. He had zero desire to journal. You know, I tried to turn that into drawing. So that worked for a little bit of time. We also did a gratitude list, and that was huge. And with my gratitude list, like we'd go for a walk, for example, especially when we had a hard day or either one of them had a hard day. And I just say, name me one thing you're grateful for today. And when my kids were younger, sometimes just the craziest things like, I'm grateful for my hamburger today was what came out. But you know what? It got them thinking of something good, and it got them out of their heads. So sometimes just doing gratitude. My older one really liked having a gratitude jar. So that's basically where at the end of the day, we would make a list of all the things we were grateful for and put it in a jar. And then when we were feeling sad, we would open up the jar and say, but remember when on that day we were grateful for watermelon, and the other day we were grateful for, you know, your friend came over, and we were grateful for the fact that we went to the beach. So it reminded them that we have good days and bad days. So that worked for a little while, then he outgrew it. And now it's more exploring emotions, you know, like, why are you feeling like that? Why are you reacting like that? You know, you need to learn to respond and not react. And what's the difference between the two? So it's just really like, you know, double checking on what is it that triggered you, that got you to want to go straight to yelling. You know, maybe it's something else that's on your mind. It's not really that thing. So we tried different things, and we tried therapy. Sometimes the other parent doesn't allow therapy. So you don't just give up, you just find another solution. There's plenty of things that you can do on your own to help your kids, that if you have a difficult, you know, other parent, so that they will never know that you're doing this. There's nothing threatening about it. You know, even the tapping, for example, that John D was mentioning. So if you take 5 minutes and just, you know, sit and watch the video with your child or children, and you just say, let's learn a new way of dealing with our emotions. And if you feel like they're hesitating, then you can say something like, you know what, mommy wants to learn how to do this. So you put it on the TV, you know, if you can connect your phone to your TV, and then put it loud enough so that like they're at least listening to it somewhat in the background, right? and, you know, walk around tapping and practicing. And then soon enough, they're going to be looking at you saying, what is she doing all the time? It's actually working. Or what is he doing? What's dad doing? And by default, they will copy you. They will mimic you. So believe it or not, they're actually going to look and pay attention to what you're doing. Like I used to be obsessed with Bob Proctor, and you know, I used to call him Uncle Bob, and that's where I learned so much. I mean, I developed like crazy. I evolved like a whole new person. And I used to put on his videos every morning when we're driving the kids to school. So I have like at least a 30-minute drive each way to bring them to school. And so I would put it on in the morning, and my kids would freak out like, what? Bob, again? Do we have to listen to this? And I was like, yeah, you know, because it really helps me relax. But at the end of the day, you know what? I was doing it because I wanted them to listen to it. So they pretended they didn't like it, but I knew they were actually paying attention to it. They were just playing this game or like trying to be difficult. So I ended up, they ended up learning so much from all these things. So always try to find new methods, new ways of doing things, and never ever block yourself by saying to yourself, oh, well, the other parent is never going to let me, and they're never going to give me permission, and, you know, they're never going to do this and never going to do that. Don't think about them so much, think about yourself and think about what you want to do and think about what's good for you and how you can help your child in this moment. And trust me, when you have that frame of mind and that belief that there's a solution to every single problem, you will find the solution. You might have to try a couple of different things until you find something that works. Sometimes the children, as they go through different ages, they evolve, and there's certain things that they don't like anymore, or that they don't resonate with, or there's other things that attract them. So just adjust yourself accordingly. And that's how I did it with my kids. And I personally felt that it was one of the best ways to do it for my kids. So we're going to go to you guys in the audience and answer your questions. So we'll start with Michael. Do you have a particular question for us related to how to protect your children throughout your divorce?
You asked to me?
Yes.